My daughter-in-law didn't see me come in. She was whispering to my son, and I caught her saying, "I already cut the brakes." Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. Tomorrow is his funeral. My legs gave out right there. I didn't scream. I didn't make a sound. I just turned around and walked out as quiet as a ghost. I called a tow truck and had my car sent straight to her father's house. 2 hours later, she realized I had heard every single word. There are moments in a man's life when the ground just opens up beneath his feet. It isn't a metaphor, and it isn't an exaggeration. It is the literal feeling that everything you built, everything you believed in, and everything you sacrificed for over decades crumbles in a matter of seconds. That was exactly what happened to me that Saturday afternoon. I had come home early from fishing because I'd forgotten my wallet. 68 years of life, 45 years working as a welder, pulling triple shifts just to give my kids everything. 28 years raising Terrence as if he were my own flesh and blood after I married his mother. And there in the kitchen of my own home, I heard her planning my murder with the coldness of someone deciding what to have for Sunday brunch. I already cut the brakes. Tomorrow is his funeral. The words echoed in my head like a gunshot reflecting off a metal wall. My whole body shook, not from fear, but from a mixture of rage and despair I never thought I could feel. My knees failed me. I had to lean against the hallway wall. My heart raced so fast, I thought I was going to have a heart attack right then and there, before she could even carry out her plan. How many fathers out there blindly believe in their children? How many men like me work their whole lives building a future for people who are planning our end? In that moment, I realized I hadn't just raised an ungrateful son, but an accomplice to murder. The silence of that house weighed on my shoulders like lead. I was always a man of few words, someone who swallowed his emotions to keep the family peace. But there, hiding in my own hallway, I understood that my silence had nearly cost me my life. Literally, I slipped out the back door like a thief in my own house. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely dial the number for the tow truck. "I need you to come get my car right now," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's an emergency." And it was a life or death emergency. 2 hours passed. They felt like 2 entire lifetimes. I sat on a park bench across the street watching my own family through the window, as if I were a stranger spying on someone else's life. And maybe that's exactly what I had become, a stranger in my own family. When the tow truck arrived and took my car, I saw Tasha's face change in the window. First confusion, then panic. She ran outside, shouting, "Pop, where's your car? What happened?" Her performance was perfect. If I hadn't heard those words earlier, I would have believed her concern. "Mechanical issue," I replied, looking her dead in the eye. Bad brakes could have been fatal. The color drained from her face. It was in that moment I knew she understood that I knew there is a specific kind of loneliness for a man who discovers that the family he built with his own 2 hands wants him dead. It's a pain that pierces the chest, settles in the stomach, and stays there like a permanent weight. It isn't just betrayal. It's the realization that you were such a good father and grandfather that you became an obstacle to their financial plans. That night, lying in the bed I shared for 15 years with a woman who raised a killer, I understood that my life had ended and begun on the same day. The man who woke up that morning had died in that hallway. What was left was someone who needed to decide if his life was still worth fighting for. How many times does a father swallow humiliation just to keep the family together? How many times does a man close his eyes to small cruelties because he believes that deep down there is love? But there is a limit. There is a point where even the most generous heart understands that too much kindness becomes stupidity. And planning your father-in-law's death is way past any limit. There in the dark of the room, listening to my wife's breathing beside me, I made a decision that would change not just my life, but the entire family structure I spent decades building. I wasn't going to die because of cut breaks. I was going to live to see the consequences of their choices. My name is Isaiah Bivens. I am 68 years old, and I need to go back in time a little so you can understand how I got to that moment hearing. My daughter-in-law planned my funeral while I was still breathing. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1955. I was the son of a laborer. I learned early on that a man works to provide for his family, even if it means sacrificing his own dreams. My father died when I was 16, leaving my mother with 5 children. I was the oldest. Do you know what that means for a young man? It means your plans of studying engineering die along with your father. I started working as a welder in a local shop. 16 years old, hands too small for the safety gloves, but steady enough to support a family. 40 years later, I was still welding. Not because I didn't have the talent for other things, but because every time I thought about changing careers, someone in the family needed something. Private school for the boy, tutoring for the girl, college, a wedding, grandkids. I met Ruby in 1989. She had a 5-year-old son, Terrence. His father had walked it some the moment he found out she was pregnant. I could have chosen a woman without baggage, but I looked at that boy and saw myself, a boy without a father. I decided I wasn't going to let that happen to him. I married Ruby in 1990 and officially adopted Terrence in 1992. To me, he was never a stepson. He was my son, period. I worked triple shifts when necessary so he could have what I never had, a present. Father and a childhood without financial struggle. I remember his first day of school in 1996. I had worked all night. I took a bus straight from the plant to the school, still wearing my grease-stained uniform. Other fathers showed up in suits and ties. I arrived with calloused hands and red eyes from lack of sleep. But I was there. I was always there. When Terrence turned 15, he decided he wanted to go to a private prep school. The tuition was half my paycheck. I took out a loan. When he wanted to study business in Atlanta, I sold my truck and moved us to the city to be closer to him. Atlanta swallowed me whole. I left my hometown, my friends, and my stable job to start over at 50 years old in a metropolis that doesn't forgive an older man. But it was for Terrence. It was always for Terrence. I got a job at a metal fabrication plant on the outskirts. An hour and a half commute each way. 4 hours a day on public transit. But Terrence was studying. In 2010, he graduated. I cried on his graduation day, not just from joy, but from relief. Finally, he was ready to fly on his own. Finally, I could think about myself. At 55, I thought I could finally have hobbies, travel, and rest a bit. But in 2012, Terrence met Tasha. She seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law. Beautiful, educated, a school teacher. She came from a middle-class family in the suburbs. Her father, Clarence, was a retired accountant. Her mother, Mabel, was a homemaker. It seemed like a solid family, different from her humbler roots. When they decided to get married in 2014, I paid for most of the wedding. Her father contributed a third, her family another third, and I covered the rest. It was $50,000 I pulled from my retirement savings and a loan that took me 3 years to pay off. But it was my son's wedding. That's what a father does. The honeymoon was in the Caribbean. $15,000 that I paid for a loan because I wanted it to be a special gift. They came back tanned and happy. I came back deeper in debt, but happy for them. In 2015, they decided to buy a house. Since Terrence was just starting his career, and Tasha was still looking for a teaching job, I co-signed. More than that, I gave them $30,000 for the down payment. Pop, when we get settled, we'll pay you back. Terrence said, it's just a loan. That loan turned into a gift when Tasha got pregnant with my first granddaughter, Maya, in 2016. Pop, with the baby coming, we won't be able to pay right now, but when I get that promotion, always later. In 2018, the second grandkid, little TJ, arrived. In 2019, they decided the house was too small. Guess who financed the move? Another $15,000. Pop, it's so your grandkids can have a yard to play in. How could I say no? All those years I kept working. At 6, 62, 64, still welding, still doing overtime, still taking side jobs. My Social Security was coming, but it was just the minimum. Without my side hustles, how was I going to keep helping the family? Ruby developed diabetes in 2020. The medication was expensive and the insurance even more so. But I kept working, always working. Terrence had a good job at a multinational firm. Tasha was working at a private school. Yet, they always had some extra expense that needed a pop's help. In 2021, I finally retired. At 66, I stopped working for the first time since I was 16. 50 years of labor, half a century, I thought I'd finally have peace. But retirement brought a change in their behavior. Suddenly, they started treating my opinions like old man talk. Suddenly, they began to see my presence as unnecessary. They stopped seeing me as the provider I always was, and started seeing me as someone who was taking up too much space. The condo Ruby and I lived in was paid off. It was ours, but it was in the same complex as their house. What a wonderful coincidence. Tasha would tell her friends, but the tone of her voice didn't match the words. In 2022, Ruby died. Complications from diabetes and heart issues. She passed away on a Sunday morning, sleeping right next to me. I woke up a widower, 67 years old, retired and alone. Terrence was very affectionate at the funeral, and so was Tasha. But 3 months later, the suggestion started. Pop, this condo is too big for just you. Pop, have you thought about moving somewhere smaller? Pop, there are some really nice assisted living communities nearby. Assisted living at 67 with perfect health, a sharp mind, and a guaranteed pension. I was in their way. That's when I started paying attention. That's when I realized my presence in the neighborhood annoyed them. That's when I understood that the condo I took 20 years to pay off was a too much for me. But I never imagined the solution they had in mind was as permanent as cut breaks. The red flags started small. Men of my generation were raised not to question family. We were taught that complaining about your son is a weakness, and doubting your daughter-in-law is just cranky father-in-law, paranoia. So I swallowed months of small humiliations. The first was Christmas 2022. Tasha organized dinner at her house. Naturally, my condo was too small. I arrived at 6, just like we agreed, with gifts for the grandkids, and a bottle of wine that cost half my monthly check. The table was set for 6 people. Terrence, Tasha, the 2 kids, Tasha's parents, and me. 6 people, but only 5 chairs. Oh, Pop, you can eat in the kitchen. The dining table only fits 5 comfortably. In the kitchen, like a servant, like I wasn't part of the main family. I swallowed the insult and ate alone in the kitchen, listening to their laughter in the dining room. When I complained to Terrence later, he said, "Oh, Pop, it wasn't on purpose. The table is just small." Always an excuse. January 2023 brought the second red flag. My check came on the 5th, and on the 6th, Terrence showed up. "Pop, can I ask a favor?" Tasha's credit card went over during the holidays. Can you lend us $2,000 just until my bonus comes in? $2,000 was almost my entire monthly income, but it was just a loan. His bonus came in February. March came. April came. Pop. An extra expense came up with the kids' school. Can I pay you next month? Always next month. The $2,000 became a permanent donation. In March, I found out they went on vacation to the beach. Instagram was full of photos. A happy family at a resort in Destin. Expensive restaurants, boat tours, but they didn't have the money to pay me back. When I asked, Tasha said, "Oh, Pop, the kids needed a break." The kids were 5 and 3. They needed a break. But the man who worked 50 years didn't even deserve his own $2,000 back. April brought the third flag. My grandson TJ hurt his arm playing. I took him to the doctor, paid for the x-ray, the private consultation, and the cast. $500 out of my pocket without blinking, because it was for my grandson. The next day, I saw Tasha buying a $1,200 dress. It's for a cousin's wedding, she explained. $1,200 for a dress, but I paid for her son's doctor. In May, Tasha's parents started visiting out of concern. Clarence, the retired accountant, started showing up at my place with suspicious frequency. Isaiah, have you thought about making a will? At our age, it's important to get these things organized. While at 68 with perfect health. What a coincidence. Mabel also increased her visits. Isaiah, have you thought about the future? And living alone at this age isn't prudent. Always followed by comments about nice senior living facilities. June brought the fourth flag, and this one was aggressive. Tasha showed up with a brochure. Pop, I found the perfect place for you. Look at these photos. It was a nursing home, a luxury one, but a nursing home. The monthly fee is $2,500, but you can sell this condo and live comfortably there. Sell my condo? The home I spent 20 years paying off the last link I had to Ruby. Why sell? I'm fine here, I said. Her response chilled me. Pop, you're getting forgetful. Yesterday, you asked what time it was twice. That's not normal. Lies. I had asked once. But she was creating a narrative. She was building a story that I was becoming senile, forgetful, and incapable of living alone. She was clearing the ground for something. In July, I found out they changed the locks on their house. Oh, Pop, a neighbor said they saw some strange people hanging around. We decided to beef up security, but they didn't give me a new key. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't have free access to my son's house. If you need anything, just ring the bell. Ringing the bell for my own son's house, like a visitor, like a stranger. August brought the most painful discovery. I found out by chance from a neighbor that they had a birthday party for Maya in July. My granddaughter turned 6, and I wasn't invited. Oh, Pop, it was just a tiny thing, just school friends, Terrence explained when I confronted him. We didn't want to bother you. Didn't want to bother me at my own granddaughter's birthday. The girl I walked to and from school while they were working. The child who stayed at my place when they wanted to go out alone. Now I was a bother. September brought the 5th flag, and this one was dangerous. I noticed Tasha making strange comments about my health to other people. Poor Pop, he's getting so forgetful. She told the neighbors. The other day he got lost coming back from that grocery store. Another lie. I knew that neighborhood like the back of my hand. We're worried about him. I heard her on the phone. Yesterday he left the stove on all night. Another lie. My stove was fine. I controlled everything in my house, but she was painting a picture of a senile man who was a danger to himself. October was the month I understood something very serious was happening. Tasha started appearing at my place more often, always worried about my diet. She brought pre-made meals, insisting I eat them right then. Pop, I made you this special soup. Soup, always liquid, always easy to mix something into. I started feeling strange dizzy spells after some of those meals. Excessive sleepiness, temporary mental confusion. I thought it was age or the stress of being a widower. But the dizziness only happened after her visits. Only after the special soups. The sixth flag came in November when I overheard a phone conversation Tasha was having on the patio. She didn't see me. She was speaking softly. He's resisting more than we imagined. We might have to speed up the process. Speed up what process? That was the moment I understood. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. There was a plan in motion. A plan that involved my health, my mental capacity, my condo, and probably my life. But I still swallowed it all in silence. I still looked for justifications. It must be a misunderstanding, I told myself. They wouldn't do that to me. Because admitting your own son is part of a plan to get rid of you is admitting you failed. As a father, it's admitting that 50 years of work and love were worth nothing. Men of my age were raised not to show weakness, not to admit we're being cheated or exploited. So we swallow the humiliation until the day we discover that humiliation is the least of our problems. Until the day we hear our daughter-in-law planning our funeral. The systematic exploitation truly ramped up after Ruby's death. While she was alive, there was a barrier. Ruby, even when she was sick, wouldn't let them disrespect me completely. But she died in November 2022, and December marked the start of my program destruction. In January 2023, Terrence came to me with a spreadsheet. Pop, Tasha did a review of the family expenses. With your pension, we can organize things better. The sheet showed all my monthly costs, utilities, groceries, meds, and next to them were saving suggestions. Pop, you spent too much on electricity. You could leave the AC off more. This was in the middle of a Georgia summer with 90 heat. A 68-year-old man should suffer in the heat to save on power. And that cable package is too expensive. Local channels are enough. 50 years working to have the right to a C and cable. And now I should live like a pauper. The most absurd suggestion was highlighted in red. Cell phone unnecessary for person of his age. Savings $80 a month. They wanted to isolate me completely. No phone, no contact with the world, depending only on them for any communication. February brought the second phase, collaborative management of my finances. Tasha suggested it would be more practical if they did my grocery shopping. Pop, you don't need to worry about these things. We'll buy everything together and save. It's saved for them because my grocery list was basic, but they included expensive items for themselves and split the bill. $500 of my pension went straight to the collaborative shopping, but I received rice, beans, and the basics. They kept the wine, the steaks, the imported goods. It's fair to divide expenses proportionally, Tasha explained. Proportionally meant I paid for half the luxuries they consumed. March marked the beginning of systematized, emotional blackmail. Pop, Ma asked why Grandpop doesn't help the family anymore. My 6-year-old granddaughter asking why I don't help after 50 years of financing everything. She saw her friends getting expensive gifts from their grandfathers and got sad. From April on, requests became demands disguised as emergencies. Pop, the washer broke. It's $1,000. We can't wait until the end of the month. Always urgent. Always an emergency. And I always paid. May brought the third phase, invalidating my opinions. Pop, at this age, you shouldn't be driving. It's dangerous. I had been driving for 50 years without a scratch. Clean license, perfect reflexes. We can take you wherever you need to go. Total dependency, total isolation. When I refused to sell the car, accidents started happening. A flat tire wall parked in the complex. A scratch on the door that appeared out of nowhere. A mirror broken mysteriously. Pop, do you see? You're a target for vandalism. It's better not to have a car. Male loneliness at 68 is different. It's realizing you've become an inconvenience to the people you raised. It's discovering that 50 years of sacrifice are worth less than $1,000 for a washing machine. When your family exploits you, you have no one to talk to. You can't cry because men don't cry. You can't complain because a father doesn't complain about his son. You stay alone with the pain. June was the month they started questioning my mental capacity. Isaiah is getting so forgetful, Tasha told Mabel in front of me. Yesterday, he asked what day it was 3 times. A blatant lie. I knew exactly what day it was. Maybe it's a early onset Alzheimer's. Mabel whispered with fake pity. Alzheimer's, the perfect word to justify anything. Involuntary commitment, loss of civil rights, transfer of assets, all legal, all backed by mental illness. In July, I found out they consulted a geriatrician, not to help me, but to get a medical opinion that would prove my incapacity. I found out through a receptionist who knew me at the health center. Mr. Bivens, your daughter-in-law, was here asking about tests for dementia. The 4th phase of exploitation began in August. Direct psychological pressure. Pop, you're becoming a burden on the family. The words came out of Taryn's mouth like a punch to the gut. A burden, after 50 years of being the pillar. Tasha is stressed out taking care of you. The kids are noticing the tension. Taking care of me? I exploded. What care? His response broke me. Pop, you can't live alone anymore. Every day it's something. You leave the stove on. You leave the door open. You mix up your meds. All lies, but repeated so often I started to doubt myself. September brought the 5th phase. Complete social isolation. They stopped inviting me to Sunday dinners. Pop, you've been so confused. It's better if you rest. They stopped bringing the kids to visit. Grandpop is a little sick. Better not to bother him. They stopped answering my calls. The essay phase began. In October, active sabotage of my independence. My debit card was mysteriously cloned. I had to get a new one, but for safety, Tasha suggested she keep it. Pop, whenever you need money, just tell me. My own pension under her control. The keys to my condo disappeared from the front desk where I left them for emergencies. Pop, maybe someone took them. For your safety, it's better to leave a copy with us. My house under their control. My life under their control. In November, they started reporting falls I was supposedly having. Isaiah hurt his knee tripping on the sidewalk. Tasha told the neighbors. I hadn't tripped once. I was in perfect health, but they were inventing accidents, building an image of a fragile man. Dr. Miller, our family doctor for 10 years, sought me out concerned. Isaiah, your daughter-in-law says you're falling a lot, that you're confused. It was the perfect trap. If I denied it, it was proof I was confused. If I confirmed it, it was proof I needed special care. The 7th phase was the cruelest. They used my grandkids against me. Grandpop is sick, Maya would say. Mom says you might die if you don't take the right medicine. What medicine? What sickness? They were using my own granddaughters to convince me I was dying. Pedro, 4 years old, hugged me crying one day. Are they going to take you to the old people's hospital? Old people's hospital? That's how they explained to a 4-year-old where I was going. A nursing home, a place to die. December was the month I understood the full dimension of it. My entire pension was being managed by them. $300 for my personal expenses. the rest for family costs. Financing their life while I ate instant soup. To save money. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was realizing I raised people incapable of love. That I dedicated 50 years to forming rotten characters. That my most valuable legacy wasn't material, but moral, and I had failed completely. Then came that Saturday in December. I already cut the brakes. Tomorrow is his funeral. In that hallway, 50 years of sacrifice culminated in a death sentence. But my reaction wasn't fear. It was a cold clarity, like a dense fog lifting. 68 years of life, 50 years working, and 28 years raising Terence. And there was the reward. I left the house like a ghost and went straight to the park. I sat on the same bench where I used to play with my grandkids. My phone shook as I called the tow truck. Remove my car now. Emergency. While I waited, I made a list. First, how long had this been going on? The dizziness wasn't a coincidence. Huh? The comments about senility were preparation. They were poisoning me slowly, maybe drugging me to create evidence of mental incapacity. Second, who else was involved? Terence definitely knew. Tasha's parents, probably. Mabel with her senior. Living suggestions. Clarence with the will. It was a family mafia. Third, what was the plan? To eliminate me physically through the car accident, or mentally through forced medication to take control of my assets? Probably both. When the truck took my car and I saw the panic on Tasha's face, I knew I had one advantage. They thought I didn't know. They thought the old man was too far gone. The plan began Sunday morning. Step 1. Document everything. I went to the nearest police station and filed a report for attempted murder. The detective, Mr. Vance, was skeptical at first. Mr. Bivens, are you sure about what you heard? When I explained the context, the dizziness, the senility narrative, the pressure to sell the condo, he understood the gravity. We'll need more concrete proof, he said, but I can tell you how to proceed. He gave me a small, discreet recorder. Use this whenever you interact with them. Step 2. Financial protection. Monday morning, I went straight to the bank. I transferred my entire pension to a new account they didn't know about. I canceled the card Tasha had. I changed every password. In 2 hours, I cut their access to my money. The manager, Mrs. Sterling, had known me for 10 years. Isaiah, can I ask why the sudden change? I told her. She was shocked. Sadly, it's not the first case I've seen. Children exploiting elderly parents is becoming an epidemic. Step 3. Personal security. I found a lawyer specialized in elder law, Mr. Elias Thorne. I gave him my full testimony. We're going to draft a specific will, he said, and include clauses that protect you against malicious guardianship. The new will was a legal masterpiece. It stated I was in full mental capacity. It described the exploitation in detail, and most importantly, it disinherited Terence and Tasha completely in case of any more attempts on my life or autonomy. Step 4. Support network. I talked to my brother Otis, who lives in Birmingham. He was outraged. Isaiah, come live with me. I have space. You'll be safe. I also called my cousin Silas in Savannah. I created a network of people who would take me in. Step 5. Medical evidence. I found a private geriatrician, Dr. Alcott. I had a full workup, MRI of the brain, cognitive tests, psychiatric evaluation, everything to prove my mental health was perfect. The results were categorical. Mr. Bivens presents fully preserved cognitive capacity. Tuesday, I started phase 2, gathering evidence. I installed recording apps on my phone. Every conversation would be logged. I also installed a mini camera in my condo. If they tried to tamper with my food or meds, it would be on film. The first evidence came quickly. Tasha showed up Tuesday afternoon with special soup. Pop, I made you something for your health. I accepted it, but only pretended to eat. I kept a sample and sent it for analysis. The result? Decibum. Enough to leave anyone confused and lethargic. Thursday was the day of the first confrontation. Terrence appeared looking worried. Pop, Tasha says you canceled her card. Why did you do that? It was the opening I needed. Record her on. Son, I need to talk to you seriously. I know everything. The color left his face. Know what, Pop? I told him word for word what I heard about the breaks. Details about the drugged soup. Evidence of financial exploitation. He tried to deny it, but his voice was trembling. Pop, I think you're confusing things. No one wants to hurt you. We're just worried about your health. Even caught red-handed, he was still trying to convince me I was crazy. Friday, I scheduled a family meeting. I want to talk to everyone. You, Tasha, and her parents. I have a proposal. The meeting was Saturday afternoon, exactly 1 week after I discovered the plan. They entered my condo with the air of people about to commit a crazy man. Tasha had papers, probably power of attorney. Clarence had a folder, probably documents, to transfer my condo. Mabel was smiling with that fake pity. Sit down, everyone, I said, my voice firm. I'm going to tell you an interesting story. I turned the recorder to maximum volume. The first thing they heard was Tasha's voice. I already cut the brakes. Tomorrow is his funeral. The silence in that room was deafening. Tasha turned as white as a sheet. Terrence opened and closed his mouth like a fish. Clarence dropped his folder. Mabel started to cry. Now you're going to listen to me, I continued. I know everything. The poison in the food, the comments about Sility, the pressure to sell the condo, the plan to kill me or lock me away. I have copies of medical exams. I have perfect mental health. And I have a lawyer, the police, and family who know everything. Their reaction was revealing. They didn't apologize. They didn't show remorse. Terrence's first sentence was, Pop, how much do you want so you don't report us? It was about money. It was always about money. I don't want your money. I replied, I want you to understand one thing. The man you tried to kill did die in that hallway, but someone else was born. And this man has no patience for ungrateful children or murderous daughters-in-law. Tasha tried to cry. Pop, it was a misunderstanding. I never cut the brakes. I was joking with Terrence. Joking? Planning a murder is a joke. You didn't understand, right? Tasha, I said, looking her in the eye. The analysis of the soup you brought showed a DAZIP. That's attempted poisoning. It's recorded, documented, and in the hands of the law. I knew. I had one. They came to commit me, but they left knowing their lives had changed forever. Now listen carefully, I said, standing up. You have 24 hours to return every cent you took from me. You have 1 week to move out of this complex, and you have the rest of your lives to pray. I don't change my mind about pressing charges. The transformation I felt in that moment was indescribable. 50 years of being submissive, exploited, and humiliated. And in 1 week, I had recovered not just control of my life, but my dignity as a man. Their immediate reaction was total panic. I watched them through the window, the whole family gathering at Terrence's house. It was a council of war for desperate people. Sunday morning, the manipulation attempts started. First, Terrence knocked on my door at 7 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and saw him alone, looking like he hadn't slept. Pop, I need to talk to you, please. I opened the door, but didn't let him in. Talk from there, Terrence. Talk loud, so? The neighbor's here too. He looked around nervously. Pop, Yesterday was a misunderstanding. Tasha didn't mean it. She was stressed. She spoke without thinking. Terrence, I replied, your wife planned my murder. That isn't stress. That's a crime. He started to cry. Desperation, not remorse. Pop, for the love of God, you can't destroy our family over a misunderstanding. Family? What family is this that wants to kill the patriarch for an inheritance? He had no answer. He stood there stammering until I shut the door in his face. An hour later, it was Tasha's turn. She arrived with the 2 kids. A low strategy, using the grandkids as an emotional shield. Pop, the kids want to talk to Grandpop. Maya and Pedro ran to hug me. Grandpop, why are you mad at Mommy? Maya asked. I looked at Tasha over my granddaughter's head. Tasha, do not use my grandkids to manipulate me. They aren't to blame for your evil. She tried to act indignant. What evil? I only want what's best for the family. What was best for me was my death, right? I asked loud enough for the neighbors, cutting the brakes so it looked like an accident. Maya looked at her mother, confused. Mommy, why is Grandpa talking about the car being broken? Tasha turned red and grabbed the kids' hands. Let's go. Grandpop is sick in the head. Even exposed, she still tried to paint me as ill. At 2:00 in the afternoon, they all showed up together, a formal delegation. They had a proposal. Isaiah Clarence started, let's just forget everything that happened. No one sues anyone. Everyone just moves on. Clarence, I responded, you aren't in a position to make proposals. You're in a position to beg me not to hand over the recordings. Mabel tried to intervene. Isaiah, we've been family for so many years. Don't let a misunderstanding destroy everything. Family, there's that word again. A family that plans murder is a criminal gang. I showed them the copies of the medical exams, the police report, the drug analysis. You have 12 hours left to return the $50,000 you took from me over the last 2 years. Clarence's face changed. $50,000? Isaiah, we don't have that kind of money available. Then sell something. Tasha's car, the jewelry, the expensive furniture. You had 2 years to spend my money. You have 12 hours to return it. Terrence tried to argue. Pop, that money was for family expenses, the kids' school, the house, groceries. It wasn't for luxuries. I pulled out the bank statements. Terrence, here are Tasha's purchases. $1,000 dresses, $800 shoes, imported perfumes. That's a family expense. Tasha exploded. Her true face finally showed. I deserved those things. I took care of you. I put up with your old man ways. I deserve to be rewarded. There was the truth. She didn't see me as family. She saw me as a job, an obligation, and she thought she deserved a bonus for faking love. Tasha, I said, my voice cold, did you take care of me or poison me? Because the analysis showed diazepam. She went white again. That was just so you would sleep better. It wasn't to hurt you. Medicating someone without their knowledge is a crime, regardless of intent. Clarence tried to defend her. Isaiah, let's all take a deep breath. This is getting out of hand. It got out of hand when your daughter cut my brakes. Now I'm just controlling the damage you caused. They left defeated. Monday morning, I started phase 2 of the consequences. I called the kids' school and canceled my financial responsibility. As of today, I am no longer responsible for my granddaughter's tuition. The secretary was confused. But Mr. Bivens, how? Will we bill the parents? As it should have been from the start. I also canceled the family health insurance. I was paying for $400 a month out of my pension. From today, everyone takes care of their own health. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Terrence showed up desperate. Pop, the school called. They said, You canceled the tuition and the insurance company, too. Pop, how are we going to pay for all that? It was funny to see his desperation. For 2 years, I paid without complaining. Now that it was their own money, it was impossible. Terrence, you both have jobs. Use your salaries. Pop, our salaries don't cover all that. Exactly. That's why you exploited me? That's why you wanted me dead. Because you couldn't maintain your lifestyle on your own. So, lower your lifestyle. Simple. Tuesday, things got heavier. The complex manager sought me out. Isaiah, I received a strange complaint. Someone said you're threatening your son's family. Tasha was trying to use the HOA against me. I showed the manager, Mr. Holloway, all the evidence. He was stunned. Isaiah, I had no idea. You mean they were trying to undo? And now they're trying to paint me as a vengeful madman. Holloway, who had known me for a decade, shook his head. Isaiah, you're one of the most balanced men I know. If you're taking these steps, it's because you had to. He gave me some valuable info. They asked to change the lease on the house to her name only. They said it was because of your health. The final confirmation. They planned to eliminate me and take everything. Wednesday brought phase 3. My lawyer called Isaiah. They found a lawyer. They're trying to file for an emergency guardianship. Over you. Do they have a chance? He laughed. With the exams you took and the evidence we have, 0. But let's get ready for the process. He explained that this meant they were desperate. Thursday was the day of the real breakdown. Terrence appeared. At my door, crying like a child. Pop, they fired Tasha from the school. Apparently, the school board found out about the attempted murder investigation and didn't want a teacher involved in a crime working with children. Pop, now, just my salary won't be enough to support us. It was ironic. For years, just my pension supported a huge chunk of their life. Now his salary wasn't enough. Terrence, maybe it's time you learn to live within your means. Pop, the kids are going to have to leave private school. They're going to be traumatized. The kids are going to be traumatized because their parents tried to kill their grandfather, not because they changed schools. Friday, Mabel appeared alone, crying. Isaiah, can I talk to you? I let her in, but kept the recorder on. Isaiah, Tatasha, is having a nervous breakdown. She's not eating or sleeping. Mabel, I replied, your daughter tried to kill me. If she's having a breakdown, it's her conscience. Please, she begged. Don't give the recordings to the police. They could put her in prison. Exactly. She should be in prison. Mabel, if I hadn't found out, I'd be dead. Your daughter would be a rich widow. Isaiah, she's a mother of 2. Then she should have thought about that before. What kind of mother plans a murder in front of her children? Mabel left crying, but her tears didn't touch my heart. Saturday came, 1 week exactly since I found out. The deadline for the money and the move had passed. Neither had happened. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I rang their doorbell. Terrence opened the door, looking like a ghost. Pop, he started, but I cut him off. The deadline passed. You didn't return the money, and you didn't move. Now the consequences change. I handed him an envelope. Here are copies of all the evidence. Monday morning, I'm going to Detective Vance. Tasha will be charged with attempted murder. You with conspiracy. His face turned gray. Pop, for love of God. You lost the love of God when you decided to kill me. Tasha appeared behind him looking like a mad woman. Hair messy, eyes red. Pop, I beg you, don't do this. Tasha, I said, you cut my brakes. You drugged me for months. You planned my death. And now you want pity. She knelt at the door. I was young, stupid, influenced by my parents. It was their idea. Interesting. Now it was the parents' fault. Tasha, you're 28, old enough to know murder is a crime. I turned out and walked away. You have until Monday morning to vanish from my sight. After that, you'll vanish for real to a cell. Sunday was total silence. Monday morning, I found a letter under my door. Pop, we're moving to another state. The kids won't know their grandfather, but at least they won't see their mother in prison. I hope you're happy with your revenge. Terrence, revenge. He called saving my own life revenge. I took the letter and went to the station, not to hand over the tapes yet, but to report they had fled. Detective Vance met with me. Isaiah, how did it go? I told him everything. They left the city, detective. I don't know if I should press the full charges. He thought for a moment. That's up to you. Technically, there was an attempt, but if they're out of your life and you're safe, I can file it or open the case. What do you prefer? I thought of Maya and little TJ. They weren't to blame for a murderous mother and a weak father. Let's just file it for now, but I want it on record if they ever come back. Understood. It stays in the archives. I left the station with a strange feeling. It wasn't relief. It wasn't sadness. It was freedom. For the first time in 50 years, I owed nobody anything. The first few days were strange. 68 years of life, 50 of them dedicated to others. Now I was alone, but it was a chosen solitude. I cleaned my condo of everything that reminded me of them. Photos, gifts, things Tasha had left behind. All went to a donation bin. The first challenge was male loneliness. Men of my age weren't raised to make friends. Our social lives revolved around work and family. Without either, I was isolated. One Tuesday in January, I saw a sign at a local gym. Strength training for seniors. First class free. 50 years welding, lifting, working with my hands. My body was tired, but not broken. I walked in. The trainer, Marcus, a guy in his 40s, treated me with respect. Mr. Bivens, have you worked out before? I told him about the years of physical labor. Then you have the base. Let's just reorganize that strength. The first week was hard. I felt ridiculous among younger people. But Marcus introduced me to other students my age. I met Gerald, a retired city worker, a widower for 3 years. Nelson, a former teacher whose kids moved abroad. Paulo, who divorced at 60 and was starting over. I discovered I wasn't the only man facing loneliness. I wasn't the only one who gave his life to family and ended up alone. For the first time in months, I felt normal. After a month at the gym, I noticed changes. I was sleeping better, had more energy, and my mind was clearer. I had a routine that didn't depend on anyone. I'd wake at 6 o'clock, hit the gym at 7 o'clock home. By 9 o'clock for breakfast. It was my choice. Gerald invited me to play dominoes on a Wednesday. We meet at the community center, just a bunch of retired guys with nothing to do. It was my first social event in decades. That wasn't an obligation. I found out I liked to talk, to laugh, to be around people who didn't want anything from me. In March, I did something I always wanted. I started learning the guitar. I found a teacher, Jordan. Mr. Bivens, it's never too late. I have 80-year-olds learning music. My fingers, used to welding torches, didn't adapt easily to delicate strings, but I had time. I practiced 3 hours a day. In May, I played my first full song, a soulful blues melody. I played it alone in my condo, and I cried. Not from sadness, but from pride. At 68, I learned something new. Jordan suggested I join a guitar circle in the park on Sundays. All ages, just playing popular songs. I went in June. It was magic. Young, old, everyone united by music. We played old soul classics, Motown, blues. I found a new family based on affinity, not blood. In July, I took a bold step, traveling alone. I always wanted to see the coast of Savannah. I stayed a week at a quiet hotel by the sea. Every morning, I walked the beach. Every evening, I read books I bought for the trip. Every night, I dined alone, listening to the world. In the hotel, I met a man named Anthony, traveling alone for 5 years. Isaiah, after 60, you either live for yourself or you die while you're still breathing, he said. We talked about ungrateful kids and postponed dreams. The difference, Anthony said, is that you had the courage to react. Most just let themselves be exploited until the end. August was the month of physical transformation. 6 months of gym had given me muscles I hadn't seen in decades. I changed my look, cut my hair in a sharper style, bought new clothes, not the old work shirts I'd worn for years. I looked in the mirror and saw a different man standing taller, firmer, alive. In September, something unexpected happened. I was at the grocery store when a woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you the Isaiah who plays guitar in the park?" It was Martha, a retired nurse, 62, a widow for 4 years. "I always see you playing, but I never dared to come up." We started talking. She also went to the gym, but at different times. She also traveled alone. It wasn't a romance. It was companionship. Someone who understood the chosen solitude. Martha became a great friend. We went to movies, concerts, and town events. It wasn't dating. It was a partnership and 2 mature people who found affection without dependency. October, I took a computer course. I was always afraid of technology, but I was curious about the digital world. The teacher, Carla, had infinite patience. "Mr. Bivens, you're doing great." In 2 months, I learned to use social media, email, and video calls. I found old work buddies on Facebook. My social circle, once limited to an exploitative family, expanded to hundreds of people with similar interests. In November, I bought a new car, not for practicality, but for pleasure. A sleek Nissan Maxima, my first car chosen for my comfort. AC, great sound system, leather seats, luxuries I always denied myself. With the new car, trips became more frequent. December marked 1 year since the discovery. I did a checkup. I was physically better, mentally calmer, socially active, and financially organized. On Christmas Eve, I got a call. It was Terrence. "Pop, Merry Christmas. How are you?" His voice sounded different, humbler, tired. "We're in Houston. Things are tough here." "Terrence," I replied. "I hope you're learning to live with dignity." Long silence. "Pop, the kids ask about Grandpop." The same old blackmail. "Terrence, if those girls love me, they can visit me on their own when they grow up. And understand that you tried to kill me. Pop, Tasha is sorry. She wants to ask for forgiveness. Sorry for being caught, not for the plan. Terrence, a killer's remorse doesn't interest me. Just stay away." I hung up and went to Christmas dinner at Martha's house. She'd invited other friends and single, divorced, widowed, and 8 of us around the table, all over 60, all rebuilding. The dinner was joyful. At 11 o'clock, we toasted. "To us, Gerald said, who discovered it, and it's never too late to be happy." I raised my glass. "To us who learned that. Family isn't bloody, so it's choice." I went home that night to a house that was truly mine and my new furniture, modern decor, plants I cared for. The house had nothing of the old life. I looked in the mirror before bed. The man I saw wasn't the one who heard his daughter-in-law plan his death a year ago. I was thinner, stronger, more alive. But mainly, I was free. free from the obligation to please, free from the need to support ingrates, free from the weight of being a father to those who didn't deserve it. At 69, I learned the most important lesson of my life. It's never too late for a man to value himself. It's never too late to choose your own happiness. And mainly, it's never too late to discover that you are worth so much more than anyone, even family, is willing to admit. The Isaiah who almost died from cut breaks had died. The one who was alive knew exactly the value of his life and wasn't willing to accept anything less than total respect. Today, I'm sitting on the porch of my new place in Savannah, where I moved 6 months ago. The ocean is calm. The morning sun is coming through the window, and I have a cup of coffee in my hand. Coffee that I chose, that I bought, that I made. It might seem like a small thing, but for a man who spent 5 decades thinking only of others, choosing your own coffee is an indescribable luxury. The view of the sea reminds me how much time I lost looking only at obligations. 50 years of labor. 2 years ago, if someone told me I'd be here playing guitar every morning and swimming every afternoon, I'd have said it was impossible. A man my age doesn't start over. A man my age just endures until the end. But I discovered something my generation didn't know. There is no age for valuing yourself. No age for setting boundaries. No age for saying no to those who don't deserve you. And mainly, there is no age for a man to discover that he can be happy without carrying the whole world on his shoulders. If this story made you think, tell me where you're reading this from. Leave a comment with your city or state. Let me know this message reached you. And if you know a father out there who is accepting less than he deserves, share this, because many men need to understand that valuing yourself isn't selfishness. It's survival. If this touched you, leave a like. We don't tell stories of victims here. We tell stories of rebirth, of men who discovered that it's never too late to live for yourself. A hug from Savannah. Remember, you built more than a family. You built a man who deserves respect. And if you aren't getting that respect, maybe it's time to build a new life where your dignity is non-negotiable. How many times do we men swallow disrespect for the peace of the family? How many fathers are financing their own humiliation? I learned at 68 that a man doesn't need to accept crumbs from those who received a banquet of opportunities. Being a father doesn't mean being exploited. And it is never ever too late for a man to value himself and start again. The life I deserve began the day I stopped accepting the life they were offering me. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch. Subscribe to Astral Vengeance. Thank you, family.